Hi, Tracy. Hi, Shelton. Congratulations on the launch of this amazing five-part Hurricane Katrina documentary series. Tracy, to start with you, I feel like anybody born after the year 2000 has a mental image of Hurricane Katrina in their brain, but this really it not only expands that, it changes that. What was the biggest thing for you in terms of like a goal of curbing some of the misconceptions about Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the things that we explore in the series, in terms of the harm that was caused to people in New Orleans were not created by Hurricane Katrina. They were revealed, by Hurricane Katrina. And so, one of the things that I really hope was to sort of show how some of the sort of systems and institutions that like kind of work invisibly in the background of our lives in ways that kind of constrict and cause harm in the lives of some people were really made manifest during Katrina, that see the connection between poverty and the ability to get yourself to safety, and those that sort of were wondering, well, why didn't people just leave? Why didn't people just leave? The people who are still in the city, and we sort of see how the institution, the system of class and poverty had a lot to play in that. And so one of my big goals was to really kind of make those sort of invisible threads that are at work in our lives very clear, in the ways that Katrina really exposed and exacerbated them. And then, secondly, as you said, I remember watching along with everyone else and feeling unsettled by the coverage. That, as we show in episode 3, really kind of began to morph into this portrayal of the people of New Orleans as having descended into this sort of subhuman, predatory, animalistic state. And even at that time, something about that just did not ring true to me. So I knew coming into the series that there was something there that we needed to look at, to revisit, and ultimately correct the narrative at the time, which was that the extraordinary thing about how people comported themselves during Katrina wasn't that they sort of descended into this chaos and lawlessness and predatory behavior, but it was that these very, very close ties of like kinship and community that exist in New Orleans did not break during the worst moment of all of these people's lives. So it was very, very intentional that we allowed the people who experienced it to offer their own stories as a corrective to some of those narratives that have persisted.
Shelton, I'm sure for you, over the 20 years, I'm sure there's moments that you can't escape, but also probably some moments that you pushed back and had to dredge up for this project. Was there anything that came to your mind while you were working with the team on this that you had just kind of completely forgotten about or hadn't thought about in a long time that felt very visceral?
Yeah, well, I would say over this time is just like it's always on repeat in my head. Obviously, doing every anniversary year, they're gonna mention it, they're gonna talk about it. I did that, you know what I mean, for 13 years, working and teaching at the school. So it's kind of like, and in my poetry and the way I write it and like, recite it, like, so I kind of already relive it to a certain degree. And the people that I lost was instrumental in my life. So obviously, I just can't get away from it. You know what I mean? But I think overall, I got to see some news stories and hear some news stories, heartbreaking. I think yeah, the beginning of episode 3, like we was watching it together. Like I think a few seconds in, I was ready to break down. Like you don't know what everybody been through. You know what you've been through. I know all the thousands of stories I hear from everybody all the time. And I know everybody want to share their story. It's tough on that because you gotta, they had to go through so much different video, so much footage and stuff like that. And I guess always in my head, I didn't have to be a producer or director. It's just I always knew I was gonna have to do something with it. You know what I mean? Like, so people can see. And I am glad that I'm able to show that positive side of some of the things that we were doing when we heard all like bad references about us and refugees. And like, so, I'm just glad I was in the right place, with the video camera and everything. So not only my words, people could also see it, and then they'll know they have a, original and authentic story, you know what I mean? And that's coming from the heart. So I just speak on what I lived and hopefully it helps somebody.
And one of the themes that comes into play around, I think that third episode that you mentioned is the media and how the story was spun and inaccurately depicted. And I'm curious for you, since obviously this is a five-part media event, but National Geographic is one of the most trusted brands in media. Um, how did you feel seeing this whole story come together? And from your perspective as somebody who was there, do you feel like this really accurately depicts the reality of what was happening?
Oh, definitely. Like I would say, as the years been going on, I can't say I'm strangers to other documentaries. Like over the years, people have been finding me. You know what I mean? And so, at the end of the day, yeah, I think the way they put it together, and the questions and stuff that Traci asked, just we was comfortable enough to talk about it. And I would say, yeah, looking at the story, I learned some things myself I didn't know. And just seeing the other stories and hearing the people, like it just kind of took me back, and it is kind of tough to watch. Like, to tell you the truth, I only been through three of the episodes so far. Like I've been shaking because the other three like already kind of got me there. So I've been trying to take them slow. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, definitely protect yourself and watch them at the pace that you need to. Now, Traci, you've lived in this story for I don't know how long, but these types of projects take a really long time to put together. You're going through so many more hours of footage than what's in the final cut, and in addition, doing these interviews. How long have you been working on this project? And what did you do for your own mental health to kind of break from the sadness of it all while working on it?
Yeah, so it was about 18 months from start to finish for me. And I will say a couple things. One, I sit here alone, but I also sit here representing a fantastic team of people, and all of us sort of were in the footage and in the interviews together. And so I think we all kind of like supported each other through it. But I also feel like this was a profound trauma for Shelton and everybody, and it continues to be, as Shelton has sort of communicated. And so for me, I guess I kind of feel like if they could have the courage and the grace to revisit that and share it with us for the sake of telling the truth, the very least I could do is sit with them. And I've kind of been thinking like, do I have some suppressed stuff that I need to like therapize about it? But I also feel like it is right and appropriate that I and all of us that are sitting with this story should feel some unease about it and should feel a little unwell. And there should be something that kind of sticks in your spirit after you've seen this happen. That feels right and appropriate to me. But mostly, I'm just really grateful that Shelton and the other people in the series were had the courage and the grace to kind of to go back there for the sake of the truth being told.
And for a last question for both of you, I mean, here we are 20 years later. Climate change hasn't stopped. And there was just even another recent water-based natural disaster in which FEMA is being accused of not responding appropriately. What do you hope is the main takeaway from audiences as they dissect these five-part documentaries and start to re-examine the state of the world we live in?
Yeah, well, I think where the most recent flood is concerned, first of all, it's just devastating and heartbreaking. And actually, I was in New Orleans premiering the series with Shelton and a few other people when that happened. And so they were sort of, I think, perhaps uniquely able to kind of understand what the people in Texas are enduring. But I will say this, not just about that flood, but also other events that we've seen, whether it's the wildfires in LA, whether it's the fires in Lahaina, whether it was the flood in Nashville, North Carolina. It was intentional that this series not feel like this sort of historic relic that we kind of like excavate and dust off from the past and show everyone, but that it really feel like it is in conversation and instructional about where we are in this current moment that we find ourselves, which is that we do have these extreme weather events that are exacerbated by man-made impacts on the environment, as Katrina was, that come up against infrastructure that was not built to withstand it. And the outcome is that it affects everyone, but most acutely affects the people on the back end who are most vulnerable on the front end. And even FEMA took lessons from that. I mean, I can't account for FEMA today, but FEMA post Katrina took lessons from that in the way that they approached disaster management and preparation for it. They did, I mean, this is a dirty word now, but they did begin to incorporate equity, right, into the way that they responded to it. And so I think one of the things that Katrina teaches us that we're currently kind of in the midst of this conversation, once again, is that when it comes to holding care and compassion for survivors and insistence on accountability, it's not either or, right? Like we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's both and that's necessary because these systems that should be protecting and preserving human life are not working, right? And so you have to approach these questions with curiosity about why those failures happen and understand that accountability for those mistakes includes repair and restitution for the people who experienced harm as a result of those failures.
Yeah, it's a rough time right now. I never been so uncertain. Like as an American citizen, I always been optimistic. I know minorities and like my people been through and the suffering we've been going through for a long time. I know how we were stereotyped and stuff like that, but still, humanity for its sake, and a lot of people like during Katrina, that color stuff wasn't in effect. It like nobody cared about any of that, and I do worry like, well, we taking this thing with FEMA, like a lack of a response. If we didn't have a warning about Hurricane Katrina, man, maybe more people would be dead than that. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. This it's a new day. We got people changing over, and the process. I thought we was getting better, and it seemed like we might be getting worse. And so I just hope we cut it out, man, and cut all of this division out amongst each other because they're gonna have more storms, and we can't be focusing on color and division and all of this. It's just gonna have to be for humanity's sake that we are just gonna have to ignore all of the political stuff that's going on and just help each other regardless. So that's all I have to say about that. But
Thank you both so much. Congratulations on a wonderful 5-part documentary, and I can't wait for the world to check it out.